I've got 5 o'clock. So we will call this work session Enterprise City Council to order. Please let the record show that all members of the council are present. So we'll just jump right into our work session agenda in the smaller folder. You should have a copy of that. Jonathan, you give us an update on our quarterly goals. This is obviously the first meeting of the second quarter, so these are fresh goals.
They are. So in talking to staff last week and then again this week, I think that the goals are realistic for us to meet. We're working on all of them at this point. Later on in this work session, you'll get update on police staffing issues in executive session. So that'll take one of the Q1 goals off that slid into Q2, and then made sure that on the next water board meeting, one of the topics will be expansion of the water board for them to talk about and consider. So we've added that to the agenda, but everything else is under progress and on track at this point.
All right. Any questions of Jonathan or staff on any of our Q2 goals? All right. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, council, if you'll pull our agenda for our regular meeting out. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm going to call audible here. I know we've got Scott Farmer here. So I assume whatever Scott's going to present us, are you going to leave after this, or are you sticking around? Do we need him to stick around? So out of courtesy, Scott, why don't we go ahead and skip to the next item here. So our redistricting update. Scott, if you'll come forward. Introduce yourself. I know you, but make sure.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Scott Farmer. I'm the Executive Director with the Southeast Alabama Regional Planning and Development Commission. We're the Regional Council of Governments for Southeast Alabama. And so y'all invited me to assist y'all in the council redistricting process. So I had presented City Administrator Tullis with a proposal a few weeks back, and I believe y'all have started looking at that. And I was wanting to go over that a little bit with y'all and kind of where we got to this point, and then take any questions or explain anything. And then we can talk about what the next stage in the process is. Whenever you look at redistricting, just break it down basic to look at what the census population is. And of course, y'all have 5 districts, so you break it into 5. And that target, that amount, which is 5,742 people per district, is what your target is. Courts have allowed up to a 10% deviation for local governments between your highest populated and your lowest populated district. And so that's what looked at first to see how the makeup of your districts were. And we looked at it. District 1 was almost 11% under target, and District 5 was almost 16% over target. So that put it close to 27% deviation, which is more than what's typically allowed. And therefore, the recommendation is to tweak your districts to get it back under that, and also look at goals, traditional redistricting principles such as maintaining incumbency, maintaining your majority minority district, keeping as much of a compact districts, congruent districts, and that sort of thing. And so what has been put in your packet is to me a starting point is to what is kind of the most conservative way to shift some district boundaries in order to put your districts back within the population. And so again, this is not necessarily this is what it needs to be, but this is a solution, or at least a starting point as far as discussion. And I don't know how deep y'all want me to get into some of this, but this changes it from almost 27% deviation to under an 8% deviation, which is within the accepted target there. It keeps the incumbents in district. It keeps District 1 a strong majority minority district. We had to add at least 336 people to District 1 to get it within deviation. We had to add at least 70 people to District 4 to get it within deviation. We had to take away at least 630 people from District 5. So what started working with first is just to get District 1 as good as possible. And so in order to do that, looking at we have to you have to look at how the census does is they break everything down into their basic census blocks, is their basic building blocks, so to speak. And so normally those are bounded by creeks, streets, certain lines and all. And so that's where we kind of have to go by, because if you split a block, well, then how are you going to know exactly what the numbers are unless you go do, and it's all based on what was there on April 1st, 2020. So the map that y'all have shows there's a little thicker line that shows what the existing districts are, and then each proposal is color coded. And so kind of on the southwest side there's been a few changes between District 1 and District 2 there, and then the biggest change again, we had to add population District 1. The biggest change is kind of at the corner, southeast corner of where Lee and the circle is, around where the Publix is, that neighborhood back behind that. That allowed us to get a lot of people. It's a diverse area, so that did not impact the racial and ethnic demographics very much for the area. And so that allowed us to get District 1 within those population constraints. And then, of course, had to take away people from 5. So did that off of just on the north side of Rucker Boulevard through part of the Heron Creek area to get that to 4, and then gave a little bit of 4 to 3 in order to because it don't take a whole lot over on the east side of town to really stack up its population. So, and based on how the blocks were done, it would have been nice to give part of the southeast corner of the city to District 1. However, if you do that, that gets all those areas down further than 167, which so you can only do so much on that. It's the same way if you split up 5 there, some of those blocks goes from one side of the boundary to the other, and you can't split up a district. So, and I'm getting kind of deep, so I don't want to necessarily do that unless you want me to. But anyway, that's kind of where we were. Again, this makes about as least as changes as possible to get everybody kind of back within those constraints. So.
Does anybody have any questions of Scott? I think everybody's had an opportunity to review these, right? It's hitting the first you're seeing it. Jonathan, you got any comments or anything?
No, I just asked Scott to come and give you kind of next steps, assuming I didn't hear any negative feedback about the proposal. So if everyone was comfortable with this, what the next step would be for the council.
So I take it everybody's comfortable moving forward with these proposals. So let's talk about next steps.
Okay, next steps. A council's responsibility or the ability to redistrict is listed under Code of Alabama, Section 11-46-23, which allows y'all the ability to make changes to, quote, wards, dividing them into voting districts. So, basically, it's pretty vague. All it basically states is that y'all have the ability to do that, just don't do it within 3 months of the election. Of course, the next election is 2025, but still, it'd be nice, I'm sure, to get it out of the way. Don't have to worry about it down the road. All basically the statute states is that whenever it's been subdivided, that the ordinance will need to kind of state what the description is by meets and bounds, which what I normally do is just kind of describe the boundaries based on those streets and creeks and things like that in order to describe that for each district. And then what y'all will do is set up a public hearing. However y'all normally do, we'll put it in the newspaper. It only has to be put in there once in advance of a meeting. So, whether it's next time or down back in May possibly, should be okay. And then go through the public process and have the public meeting. And then after that public meeting, y'all have the ability then to adopt the new district composition. And once that's done, as part of that, again, part of that resolution, we'll have to have the description. And then within 5 days of that, I believe it has to be filed with the probate court, and then the ordinance will have to be published in the paper. Once the ordinance is published, the new districts will be effective. So basically, there will have to be an ad put in the paper for a public hearing. Once you go to the public hearing process and adopt the ordinance will need to be put in the paper and have to be filed with a probate judge, and that's pretty much the process.
So, Rainer, I assume we just do that like we do our normal public hearings, just in a regular council meeting.
No.
So it'd be much like a planning recommendation. Okay. All right. So, everybody's comfortable moving forward, so let's, I guess, work with Beverly and Rayner and Jonathan to
Yes, sir.
let's get it done.
We'll do.
All right. Any other questions, comments?
If y'all do, we'll get it set up, but if y'all do in the meantime, let Jonathan know and he'll get with me and I'll give whatever answers I need, but thanks for letting me come with you on this.
Thank you, Scott. All right, so moving backwards to the item I skipped is our agenda review. Y'all will turn to our regular meeting agenda. So, of course, we've got the roll call, opening prayer, approval of the agenda, consideration of the consent agenda, which is our normal stuff of council meeting minutes, accounts payable A. All these were in our packets, contract billing, travel request. Any questions, comments on anything in the consent agenda? All right, then we've got Mayor Cooper is going to have some extra mile awards.
I was just notified by Public Works Director that the folks that are receiving those awards tonight are out actually working the storm right now. And we made a request to postpone that if possible to the next council meeting.
All right, so we will postpone this. So what we'll do is we'll just strike that from the agenda when we approve the agenda. All right, so then we've got our approval of event permits. So this is our, looks like the rest of the calendar year, the known events. Is that correct? All the way through our Christmas parade and Whoville Grinch 5K fun run. Any questions on any of that? Is anybody here to talk about any of that? Or, I mean, is anybody having any questions? These are all our normal events, right? All right. So, Chief Moore, you good to go on everything? All right. Then we'll have privilege of the floor and move into old business. We have a public hearing, consideration of the rezone out for Lunchford Road. It's called the Axton Rezone. Then we've got new business, introduced planning commission recommendation. So these are strictly introductions. We will not be addressing those tonight. Then we've got the establishment of the airport zoning commission. Jonathan, you want to, and Barry want to update us on that?
So Mayor Cooper had notified, I think we talked about this at the last council meeting, the Coffee County Commission, that the city intended to exercise their right within 2 miles of the airport for zoning and planning purposes. The law, as Rayner has explained it to me, gives us two options to establish a airport zoning commission, and that is the existing planning commission could take those duties, or you could appoint additional members and have a different board altogether. To be honest, in the essence of time, because of that letter to the county commission, basically they are holding off on anything within 2 miles of the airport currently, waiting on whatever we're going to do in terms of zoning or planning in that process. So we're actually potentially hindering some growth. So the sooner we act on this, it would be the better for development.
Any reason that it would rise to the urgency that we can't lay this over and pass it in 2 weeks?
I believe so.
You believe that would be okay?
No, I believe it's that urgent that we need to.
So what's everybody's thoughts on that? I mean, typically we would introduce it, lay it over, consider it next meeting.
I think we need to do it tonight. Discuss it.
Greg, your thoughts?
I don't guess it makes a whole lot of difference to me, especially not knowing exactly what is creating the urgency. So it's hard to.
Well, I can elaborate. So essentially, within 2 miles of the airport now, because we've notified the county that we intend to utilize our zoning authority, there's no zoning set, and so because of that, anybody that wants to build a house or a subdivision or anything within 2 miles of the airport has no recourse. It just basically goes to the county commission, and they say, well, you need to go talk to the enterprise zoning or planning authority, and we don't have anything to zone or regulate that. So the sooner we get something in place, the sooner we'll be able to answer those questions for them and know what the process is. So every week that goes by is delaying development plans for people.
I feel like we should vote on it tonight.
Sonia, you.
I'm fine with it. It seems like when we have these suspension of the rules, I guess I would like to assume when they're on there, there is some, specific reason why we would do it. I know sometimes we haven't, sometimes we have, but I can't pick. I haven't been able to tell with the ones we picked and the ones we haven't.
Well, I mean, in general, we've just needed a compelling reason to suspend the rules. You know, whether it's to
And I
Jonathan's
guess
point,
it's
holding
saying-
up existing.
That sounds compelling. I mean,
Okay. All right, so if there's no objection to doing it, then all right. So moving on to introduction of Ordinance 040522B, which is a zoning boundary line for 104 Kelly Street. Can Barry or somebody tell us about this? This is new.
Yes, sir. 104 Kelly is a split zone. It was a blanket zoning that was put onto that piece of property back when along Main Street. Intention was to have a business district zoning adjacent to Main Street. It actually reached across that first parcel to a second parcel and split a house in half. Half of the house was in business district, half of it was in residential, and I believe it was R75. But the intent of the map, the way that we read the zoning regulations is to follow the boundary line of the parcel. So we discussed that with the planning commission about moving that zoning back up to the parcel line. So what we're doing is we're requesting that the zoning map be modified to bring that zoning line boundary to the parcel line, and planning commission approved that request. It's there before you to modify the zoning map to follow that.
Is there any urgency to this, or?
No, not that I know of.
Okay.
Yes, there is.
Is it?
Okay.
Is it? I'm sorry.
So this request came from Ms. Bobby Kelly and her family that live at 104 Kelly Street. They are just waiting to close Miss Kelly's house. She's 84.
Okay.
And what happens sometimes is the mortgage companies will contact the city and say, what zone is this in? That's what happened, and the engineering department told them it was in commercial zone. Well, that's a problem sometimes for the mortgage company, because if they make a loan and the house were destroyed in a storm or whatever, there'd be an issue about whether they could build it back in a commercial zone, which wouldn't typically allow residential dwelling. So this cures that, we believe, and allows her to go ahead and sell her property that's urgently pending.
And this only affects one residence?
That's right. And just so you'll know, it is to take the line. Y'all know where those Leland cypress trees are. The parking lot across from the farmer's market, we lease that from Miss Kelly. And this would take the line up to the Leland cypresses on the Main Street side, if that makes sense. Not on the 104 Kelly side, but on the Main Street side. And keep that lot commercial that we lease from the farmer's market. That's the difference. Any questions?
Any concerns with, first of all, suspending the rules to consider it immediately? No. Then any questions about the specific ordinance? Okay. All right, then we've got public hearing consideration resolution for Second Street of Huntsville LLC. So it's something everybody should be up to speed on, but Jonathan, can you come introduce this to the public?
So we've also run a public advertisement of this notice as well. So public should have had an opportunity to look at it, but essentially using Amendment 772 language, a company approached us, a development company approached the city about renovating and putting something into the vacant Office Depot building. And based on their pro forma and what they were trying to do, they asked the city to consider a 772 agreement to do some sort of a revenue share on incremental taxes. And of course, that's not exactly what the 772 does, Rayner. I know you correct me a lot about that, but it will yield, based on their performance, some amount of money to the developer based on how much gross sales they have. As a result, one of the reasons that the council, when we talked in executive session about it, you said to move forward with it was that it accomplished some of your goals with redevelopment along Rucker Boulevard, blighted buildings, vacant buildings along that section, the south side of town, and the Main Street corridor were the three areas that you identified in our strategic planning that was a point of emphasis. And so this certainly would accomplish that.
All right, so any questions on this? So it's performance driven. They don't get a dime if they don't produce a dime.
Correct.
All right, everybody good? All right, then we've got review and consider resolution 040522A, which is to establish the Airport Advisory Committee.
This would be establishing an airport advisory committee, something that Councilman Johnson has worked closely with Mayor Cooper and City Attorney on, so that we can have a consolidated voice to bring concerns in and around the airport to the mayor's office and staff, and make recommendations outside of the political purview. So if there were waiting list or something like for T-hanger space, or it needs to be more commercial hangar space, or runways need to be lengthened. These are gives the tenants out of the airport kind of a voice.
All right. Any questions or so this would be council appointed, right?
It would.
Yeah.
Council appointed.
All right. Scotty, you got anything to add on that?
No, I think it's something needed after talking with a lot of the folks out there to be able to have a voice to come in, and it's the politics is all out of it. I've got some folks that have approached me, and I've talked to a few others that have a lot of background in aviation that are concerned about the airport and concerned about our city, and we can talk about that too at no time. But this would be a great committee to have for us, to help us, the council and the mayor.
Okay. And they're just advisory in nature.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
It's very similar to the incubator advisory committee that the council has.
Yep. Any questions? Okay, then we've got a lease at the DAV 704 Crawford Avenue. So this is a long-standing arrangement we've had. It's just putting it in writing.
That's right. Doing our research, it was clear that we didn't have a formal agreement to who's responsible for what, and we had an incident at the DAV resident on Crawford Avenue where a storm had come in, and there had been some leaky roof and ceiling tiles fell down, and it was kind of who's responsible to fix it, and that's what precipitated looking through and finding out that we had no formal lease agreement or arrangement. So
Any questions? All right, then, in addition to the agenda, or at least the original agenda, is this additional library appropriations, something that was brought to us several meetings back?
It was in November.
Okay.
I went back and pulled the records, but the library board members, I think Terry Boswell and Sheila, I think, had come down at the time to talk to the mayor and the council members. Essentially, they looked over the last 20 years or so, and public funds had not increased at the library while a lot of their expenses had. They did a report about how many people they service within the area. It was like close to 40,000, and really kind of boiled that down. So I don't know if you remember that conversation or not. But what they had asked is to increase their appropriation $22,000 annually. When we talked to them, we had agreed to go back and look at it if we did a budget revision 6 months into the year, similar to what we did last year. Since we're not doing that 6 months into the year, our budget seems to be on track right now. We're looking more at a 9-month revision process, but they could use the funds now to implement some of the things that they're trying to do. So that was the urgency. Well, I guess I shouldn't say urgency, but the reason that they brought it up again and said, hey, we'd really like you to consider doing this in April.
All right. So I take it this comes as a recommendation from staff to move forward with this.
It does, and I talked to from the staff and from Mayor Cooper, but I checked with Leanne, looked at the budget numbers, and we are able to do this without impacting our current operational budget. So it would be a recommendation, yes, to approve that.
Anybody have any concerns, questions? All right, you should have been in receipt, I believe, of a letter from the library regarding their needs. So. All right, so that's all we've got on the agenda. I will, when I call for approval of the agenda, I will ask for approval as submitted with the deletion of the extra mile awards. So we'll remove that from the agenda. Any other additions or deletions needed from the agenda? All right, we will go back to our work session agenda. Leanne, you want to give us an update on our fiscal year 2021 financial audit?
Sure. So the on-site field work from the auditors have been completed at this point. Of course, there's always things to follow up on after the fact once they get back to their office and have all their reconciliations and are buttoning things up. There's always some follow-up questions and requests for information that we will be working on getting to them. Of course, our financials are consolidated with other parties, and one of the bigger ones, of course, is the water department. The water audit, the auditors for that are scheduled to be here on April 20th, and will probably be here about a week and a half to do on-site work. And, again, once they leave, there'll still be, some follow-up questions and things that will need to be addressed after that. The other parties, though, involved are the library. The audit has been completed for the library, and those financials were issued in February, so that's checked off the list. The ID board, the field work on that has been completed. They're still waiting on a final review from a partner at the firm on that one, but they're expecting that there'll be a draft of those financials to be released in probably the next couple of weeks. And then, of course, the other really big one is the school system. My understanding is that they did have a change in partner that oversees the field work for that during the middle of the audit. So a new partner was assigned, and they are still in progress on doing the field work and gathering all the information for that one. So I would anticipate that that's going to take, a little bit longer. My hope at this point would be that we would have something early June, perhaps, would really at this point be the earliest that I would think that we would have something back. just because of, we've had some delays. And of course, as you all know, we spent a lot of time ensuring that the bond issues that were completed last year were, everything was, all the T's were crossed and our I's were dotted and everything was in there for that. So that did take us a little bit of time. But otherwise, we are in really good shape, and I'm really happy. It's not as soon as I would have liked it, but I'm very happy with the improvements that we've made in getting things back in a timely manner this year. And even if it's, into June, we're still well ahead of where we have been for the last several years. So I think it'll be good.
So it does sound like we've made some major improvements to your point, and obviously it's April 5th.
Mm-hmm.
We're well ahead of where we've been in our experience. But I guess we've still got this school nut to crack of I mean, Jonathan, I think you and I have talked about how do we get everybody in the room and have our, I mean, it's not good for them to be waiting until June for an audit. It's not good for us to be waiting. I mean, how in the world can we make decisions in 2022 when we're not getting information on 2021 until 9 months into the year? So anyway, I think everybody sees the folly there. But
no, I think so. And like I said, I think we have really made some significant progress this year, and I would expect that we're going to have even more progress next year, with some consistency in many of these offices and organizations. Having some consistency from year to year is going to make a huge difference. And I think keeping those lines of communication open amongst all of us who are working together to get this done, I think it's going to be even better next year. So.
Okay. Any questions of Leanne? All right, thank you for your work on that, Leanne.
Yes, you're welcome.
All right, so next item on here is it's actually two different items, the board appointment process and the ALM proxy. So the board appointments, as we have, or as I've disseminated to each of you, just kind of review our board appointment process, and forgive me for when I sent that email out. I think I left some details out. Greg and I actually spoke about that today. But just to refresh everybody, you've got your board nominee assignments. So the next step would be to get those in front of the mayor and Jonathan, let them compile those into a slate, discuss those amongst themselves, get with each of us individually to gather feedback, so that ideally we would be able to present a slate at our next meeting for approval at the first meeting in May. So no reason to rush that tonight as far as making any nominations, but we would like to get that rolling, preferably this week. If you've already, I know some of you already have some people you've talked to, so if y'all could be getting the mayor and Jonathan some feedback on that. Any questions as far as how that needs to go? All right, this ALM, Alabama League of Municipalities proxy. Who wants to? Jonathan, I guess I'll.
So I believe this is an annual
thing. We did this last year, did you not, Greg?
And so essentially, if someone's not going to represent the city at that, and Greg went last year, and I don't know if he'll be able to this year or not, but you need to decide who would be that member and then who would be the proxy. And as I understand it, Mayor Saliba offered to be the proxy for the city, because he's planning on being at the event. So in the event that someone here couldn't make it, didn't make it.
So Greg, I guess my question is for you. What is there any concern with that? I mean, will we get a list of what we're voting on ahead of time? And what are your thoughts on that, Greg? You've got the most recent experience with this.
Really, it was really wasn't much at all. It was kind of got in a room and they told us what they were looking at, and it was a kind of up or down thing. It was a quick in, out. I'm not even sure why it was such a big deal, to be honest with you, but it was, they did send an email out, I want to say a few weeks before the meeting, letting us know what was coming up so we could discuss it amongst ourselves, but it was.
Now, this is not the AMIC, this is different than, or is this the AMIC proxy? In our packet, we've got
Yeah.
because that meeting is Thursday, May 12th. So when do we need to make a decision on this, Jonathan?
Well, that.
Can't read that on the second one on the AMEC proxy, but I think it's the same meeting, same deal. I'm not sure why this one ended up in your packet, but at the bottom of that it says they need to be mailed and postmarked by April 12th.
Okay. So,
I want to say on the one I was not AMIC, I was ALM
Yeah.
proxy, and I want to say they ended up actually not even having a vote when I went.
Yeah.
ALM is the 29th. So, so do we need to?
Yeah, I was ALM, not AMIC.
Is any of this going to require council action?
No, just needed to make sure somebody was comfortable with
Okay.
having a proxy that,
All right.
didn't want to do anything against the council's wishes there.
Yeah. Is everybody comfortable allowing Jonathan and Mayor to move forward with what they think's best?
Sure.
All right. We've got a request from Chief Moore to update us in executive session regarding some security matters. So I will entertain a motion to go into executive session regarding security. Expect it to take 15 to 20 minutes, Chief. Okay. So we expect to return to adjourn into our regular meeting. Don't expect any more business in the work session, but obviously we'll have our regular business to conduct in our regular session. So I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So move.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Fine, thank you. Doing good, sir.
Well, thank you.
No.
right, my apologies that executive session ran a few minutes longer than planned, but I'll now call this city council meeting of the Enterprise City Council to order. Let the record show that all members of the council are present. If you would, please stand with me for the opening prayer and pledge of allegiance. Do we have a pastor here to say the prayer? Okay. Sorry about that. I didn't have your name.
Father, thank you for the day you've given us, the blessing for the day. Thank you for the rain. You set our way and protection in the midst of storms. Lord, we ask your blessings on this gathering tonight. Thank you for those who are willing to serve. We're grateful for them. We pray your blessings. We ask for your wisdom, your leadership in their lives. Thank you for their willingness to serve this community as they serve you through that. We ask that you would help us to remember our responsibilities as well. And surely one of those is to pray for those who serve. We thank you for it all. We ask your blessing in Jesus' name.
Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. All right, council, you should have the agenda in your packet as discussed in the work session prior to this meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted with the deletion of the extra mile awards.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider the consent agenda. All matters listed within the consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the council for review, are considered to be routine, and will be enacted by one motion of the city council with no separate discussion. If separate discussion is desired on an item, that item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda by request of a member of the city council. I will now call for a motion to approve this consent agenda as presented.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we now have the consideration of approval of event permits from Main Street Enterprise, the Downtown Enterprise Business Association, and the Chamber of Commerce. So all of you should have these this list in front of you, and you were presented with those requests in your packet. So I will now call for a motion to approve the following permits for 2022 downtown events as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we now have privilege of the floor. This is the time of the meeting where anybody who's present here tonight to discuss something that is not on the agenda. If you're here to discuss something that's on the agenda in a public hearing, this would not be the time to do that. So if anybody's here to speak to us, you'll be given 3 minutes. And were you wanting to take advantage of privilege of the floor? All right, come forward. Please speak clearly into the microphone. Give everybody your name.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Council, Mayor. I'm Lorenzo Harrison, and I thank you for this time. But I just come before you. I know when you all became council, that you all, one thing was being transparent. And I just want to come before you today and just thank you for working towards that and doing that. In that, the meetings are being live broadcast. You know, some of the meetings as far as the Planning Commission, the Board of Adjustment, and that way the citizens can get as well as the work sessions as well as the meetings. And we know that the work session is where, as my great uncle used to say, you can get it from the horse's mouth. And I just like to say, I know Miss Michelle McMahon had published an article in the Southeast Sun about transparency, and it explained to the citizens about the Sunshine Law, where they can attend all the meetings that they're allowed to do so, and that they would get all the discussion at the work sessions, and that the main meeting is for voting. So I just like to thank you all for putting that, getting that established, where the live broadcasts are out there. I know that help inform the citizens, and also as you all owning businesses, having jobs, and being retired, and attending a lot of other club meetings and things. You all don't get a chance to attend the meetings, but you all would have the opportunity to view those, which would give you some of the knowledge of what happened in those meetings. So when you do have to vote on it, you want to get it from a paper coming into the mail, or you won't get it right before you get to vote on it. You'll know exactly what's going on that way. If you have to suspend the rules or anything to that nature, you'll be informed of. But my thing is just to thank you all for what you all doing as far as making the meeting transparent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have anybody else here to address the council on something other than one of the public hearings that's going to be taking place later? All right. Seeing no one, we will move on to our old business. We've got one item of old business, which is a public hearing and consideration of Ordinance 030122, which is the Axton rezone. I will now call for a public hearing prior to consideration of Ordinance 030122, providing for the rezone of 139.56 acres of land owned by Kevin Axton from R100 Residential District and AGRIC-1, which is Agricultural District, to R85 Residential District and R75A Residential District, located off of Port Lunsford Road. All right, this hearing is now open. And so do we have anybody here to speak for or against? All right, so I see two hands raised. You against? Against? Okay, so come forward. Please use the microphone, speak clearly, let everybody know your name.
Yes, my name is Jorge Mazariegos. I'm a resident of Cotton Creek. And so thank you for the opportunity to speak with you guys and Mr. Mayor. So I am against the rezoning, specifically of the 35 acres that are being considered to be R75A, which is strictly apartment use. Don't have anything against rezoning of the other 105 acres to R85, but just feel that even though it's not for sure that that area could become a problem as far as decrease in value of the properties, it is an opportunity. Anytime you you have apartment complexes, you open the door for the properties to, specifically the apartment complex, to go below what was expected as far as the living conditions. And so with that, if that happens, whether it's likely or not, it is a potential, and all the surrounding subdivisions have a possibility of losing value. So that's my position on that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Yes, sir. Please make sure you give us your name.
Good evening. It's Phil Schmeezing, and I'm a member or a resident of the Cotton Creek Homeowners Association, live in Cotton Creek.
Could you spell that name?
Schmeezing, that's SCHMIESING.
All right, thank you, sir.
And along with Jorge, just, one of our biggest concerns is with the apartment buildings on that end of town. There are none at all yet. We'd like it to keep it that way, for a couple reasons. The biggest one, again, is reduction of property values. But very closely with that one would be the amount of traffic that's going to get dumped onto that Porter Lunsford Road. If you've ever been there in the morning school hours, you'll know you wait to 3 or 4 lights at times to get through the intersection on Highway 27. So before that gets built, if that's the way they're going to go, the city is going to have to, re-engineer that entire intersection. It'll need turn lanes on both the 27 and Porter Lunsford Road, both directions there. And, there's a new shopping center, that's going on the other side of where the one that's currently there. There's another strip mall going in there already. There's already, streets that are going in there. Those houses haven't been built yet. But as soon as they're built and occupied, the traffic's going to get worse already. And now we're going to put an apartment so we can, just dump a lot more residents, into that area. Again, I'd like to see it stay at R100, just to limit the number of homes that are built there, just to control the traffic situation we have out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. All right. Anybody else here to speak? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name's Mr. Mims. I live at 519 Riverwood Drive in Summerbrook subdivision. I'm basically here to try to get an education on this and several questions I have about the project in reference to the apartments. First of all, as far as possibly, maybe, or maybe not affecting the home values in that area, especially with the lakes, new area going up there. There's one going in the corner, right there on the corner area of 27 and Port of Lunsford. Has there been a survey conducted by a reputable real estate company that might show us that it's not going to affect the home values in that area with the apartments? I'm asking you guys because I don't know.
So what I can do, I mean, this isn't a dialogue or back and forth. It's a public hearing. You're certainly willing to come ask questions. The council will have an opportunity to ask our staff here shortly, and the developers these questions. So if you want to ask your questions, you're certainly. But like I say,
right.
I just want to set expectations. Unless somebody wants to knows the answer and wants to answer, but we're likely not going to be the ones with that answer.
Right.
So we're here to hold this hearing.
I've got a little schematic here, which I can't tell heads or tail out of. But are these apartments going to kind of be in between the new area that's being put in now in the corner of 27 and Port of Lunsford and the lakes? Is that what we're doing? Is that what we plan on doing?
We'll have staff detail out the specific location.
Do we know what kind of apartments these are going to be? Are they going to be luxury apartments? Are they going to be something that they'll have an HOA? Is there any federal funding involved or state funding where we might have a certain percentage of Section 8 or low income?
I'll make sure to ask those questions.
Okay. As the gentleman spoke before me, I get around town quite a bit, and that road, Port of Lunsford, is in bad shape. Been in bad shape for a while. And now we added the lakes. We're adding that place up on the corner of 27 and Porter. And now we're looking at doing more. That road really needs some work. Now, I imagine that will happen once all this infrastructure goes in. I don't know.
I'm probably speaking out of turn here. I'll let staff address that also, but it is slated to be
wide. For sure.
It's slated to be widened and paved
that's what I thought.
in this phase.
Okay. That's about all.
I'll get clarification on that also.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else here to speak against? Okay.
Hi. Good evening. Thank you all for letting me speak. My name is Christina. My name is Christina Masariegos, and I no longer have kids in elementary, but I do know that I believe it's now been rezoned for Holly Hill, and that's where my kids went. And I just feel like if the apartments, again, speaking of the apartments, if they bring in a lot of small children, there's going to need to be some other elementary school to help out, because it's going to really crowd even more the elementary system. So that's That's one of my main concerns, is for the children in the schools.
Right.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
And to be clear on that, this council does not, we don't address school zoning. That's more of a Board of Education. All right, anybody else here to speak against the development? Yes, sir.
Good evening. Pedro San Miguel. I'm also with Cotton Creek. I just want to voice my opinion. I'm also against it for the same reasons stated earlier. The school, we don't want to overwhelm the staff already. The roads and the property value. That's all.
Thank you. All right, is anybody else here to speak against this development? All right, the gentleman wants to speak for the development.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Philip Santor, North Star Engineering. We do appreciate the opportunity to come before you today, and as you're aware, we've gone through Planning Commission with this, and now coming before you in this public hearing. We are asking this to be rezoned. This property is contiguous to the lakes, which was also developed by Mr. Kevin Axton, and North Star Engineering did the engineering on the lakes. The property that seems to be most in question is the apartment, 35 acres. It's inside the other property, which for the residential goes all the way around it. So it won't be the ideal that Mr. Axton would go in there and try to reduce the value of his property, which will be contiguous to this, shows you that we believe it's not going to lower the value of the land. Also, there is no federal or state funding. The type of apartments will be like Camellia Apartments, which we designed on the other side of town for a different developer, but North Star Engineering designed it. And we'll be glad to answer any other questions that you may have.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Santor? While you're here, I will just ask some of the questions that were asked earlier. So the specific location of the property in question in its entirety and of the, I mean, I know we've got them in our packets, but just for everybody's benefit, it's between the lakes and.
It is, yes, sir. It's between the lakes and 27. And what will happen is the lakes will expand to the other side of the lakes. And you'll have a road coming in to the lakes. The same road that will come into the next phase of the lakes will also serve into the apartments. So there'll be one access coming back out on that side of the lakes, and it will serve both developments.
Now, which apartment complex did you compare this one to?
Camellia, that's over at the theater.
Okay, so, all right. Those are considered luxury apartments over there, correct?
Yes, sir.
So not subsidized.
They're not subsidized, no, sir.
Will there be for lack of a better word, homeowners association, both in the development and in the apartment complex?
Yes.
In other words, I think one of the big concerns is, what measures are being taken place to make sure that the property is kept up and that there will not be a influx of crime and blight and all those things.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned before, the same concern would be for his development also. And so even in the Planning Commission, someone asked about kind of separation and things like that. I'm sure that this area will be probably fenced separately from the subdivision, but again, it's contiguous to the next phase of the lakes. So there would be a continuation of the HOA for the lakes, and then there would be a management company that would be overseeing the apartment complex.
Will it be just one management company or multiple management companies?
No, ma'am, it would just be one management company.
Any other questions for Mr. Santor? All right, thank you, thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak for the development? Barry? Yes, well, a management company. Yes, yes, sir. Barry, would you mind coming forward? So clarify on the plans for paving and widening of Porter Lunsford Road, please.
Yes, sir. So Porter Lunsford Road is one of the projects that we are currently in our paving project, and we are not only resurfacing that road, but we're widening that road to 11-foot lanes on there. So that will definitely aid in the traffic. That was a road that was brought into the city, and it needed to be widened. So we made sure in this paving project that we not only resurface that road, which was one of the poorest condition roads in the city, but also made sure that we widen that to help with the traffic that's along Porter Lunsford Road.
What's the schedule on that right now, we think?
It's got to be done by June. Is that in the next round? So we got a list later today about the next roads on there. I don't remember being on there, but it's got to be done by June, so it'll be done before June.
Including the widening
Yes,
and restriping.
Yes, sir.
Will be involved in that.
I believe we lack 17 roads left in this paving project to get complete, is the number I remember. And it's one of the 17 streets to be completed in this current contract under phase 2.
Okay. So this is coming to the council in the form of a recommendation from the planning commission.
That is correct.
So the assumption would be that staff carried a recommendation to the planning commission for this approval. It's consistent with all cities' planning and zoning.
Yes, sir. The request came, this is just for rezoning, and it came through staff, and we reviewed it and made a recommendation to planning commission. We had a public hearing, signs were posted, and we had a public hearing for planning commission. Planning commission heard both sides. We went through a lot of data analysis at planning commission, and it was unanimously recommended by planning commission to rezone this as it's submitted to you in its final form.
Okay. Any more questions for Barry? Or
I will say one thing.
Okay, go
if
ahead,
I can.
Barry.
You know, there has not been a preliminary plat or a development plan for this property. This is just rezoning.
This is just a rezone.
Just a rezone. And at some point when the developer comes forward with a plan, we will look at if it is apartments. It doesn't necessarily have to be apartments. It could be cottages. It could be smaller lots. A lot of people use that R75A for smaller lot developments. But once they come with a plan of what they're wanting to build, we will analyze that plan and come back before Plan Commission with a full preliminary plat with our recommendations of what staff's concerns are about it. And we will look at traffic along, the development along Porter Lunsford. We'll look at buffer areas with adjacent properties. We'll look at all that stuff. But at this point, it's just a rezone. We have not seen any development plans for the property.
All right. Any other questions for Barry? All right, thank you, Barry.
Yes, sir.
Jonathan, would you mind coming forward? I'd asked you a question similar to this. So, one of the big concerns is school population with the emergence of apartment complexes. I asked you to look into, the facts of this new apartment complex we have that's been referenced. How many families with kids? I mean, even though we don't handle school zoning, I think it is, wise for us to at least be aware of what those types of developments do.
So in City of Enterprise right now, similar type, apartment type complexes. So I think they referenced the point at Camellia Commons has about 174 units. In talking to them, I think they had 12 units occupied by families with school-aged children. So in terms of a density mix, when you would look at a R100 neighborhood, R65 neighborhood, something like that, typically you're more likely to have families that would move into those neighborhoods. So it's less than 10% in the city apartment mix are school-aged type families. A lot of the 1-2 bedroom type things, or maybe single individuals, or a couple that don't have kids yet, or something like that. And so that's kind of what the research I did. Typically, when you have a larger development, you have people that may have a family and move into those with like R100, R65, R85 type lots. And so from a density standpoint, I haven't found that it would be
with these type of apartments. Obviously, if they were a different subsidized housing or something like that, you may see a different mix.
Correct.
Okay.
But I looked at similar apartments, Beacon Ridge being one. Like a lot of the tenant mixes were, might be maybe students at flight school, or young individuals that wanted to, had a job, maybe at M1 or something like that, but not married with children yet.
Okay. Any other questions for Jonathan? All right. Thank you, John.
Thanks.
All right. Just to make sure everybody has had their say. Is anybody who has not spoken before we close this public hearing? Is anybody that has not spoken wish to say something to the council? All right. I will call this public hearing closed, and I will now call for a motion for the consideration of Ordinance 030122.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt Ordinance 030122. Is there any discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll now move on to new business. I will now introduce for the record a recommendation from the Enterprise Planning Commission to approve the following request for the rezone of property. A request by Sri Vaikunt LLC for the rezoning of 0.847 acres of land from R100 Residential District to B1 General Business District located at 805 Damascus Road. I'll now introduce Ordinance 040522, which is the Sri Vaikunt LLC rezone. I now introduce Ordinance 040522, providing for the rezone of 0.847 acres of land owned by Sri Vaikunt LLC from R100 Residential District to B1 General Business District located at 805 Damascus Road. I will now call for a public hearing to be held at the regular meeting scheduled for May 3rd, 2022. There'll be no action taken on this tonight. Now introduce Ordinance 040522A, which is to establish Airport Zoning Commission. Introduce Ordinance 040522A, establishing an Airport Zoning Commission, which will be the Enterprise Planning Commission to engage in and make recommendations as to zoning rules and regulations, including the setting of initial zoning within 2 miles of the Enterprise Municipal Airport. It is the ordinance's intent to establish the mechanisms for such zoning, and the council will await further recommendations of the planning commissions. So as you see there, if it's the council's desire to consider this ordinance immediately, suspension of the rules is necessary prior to consideration. If we don't suspend the rules, then this will be introduced and considered at the next meeting. So, is there a motion to suspend the rules? All right, I will introduce Ordinance 040522B, which is to determine the zoning boundary lines 104 Kelly Street. I'll introduce Ordinance 040522B to determine the zoning boundaries as to the property of Bobby Kelly at or near 104 Kelly Street, Enterprise, Alabama 36330. The official zoning map appears to show the zoning boundary lines separating R75S zone and B2 zone running through Ms. Kelly's house. In such instances, our ordinance allows the City Council, after recommendation of the Planning Commission, to set the zoning district boundary line. This ordinance sets the boundary line as to the zoning district, such as Ms. Kelly's house is fully inside a residential zone. If we're going to consider this tonight, we also need to suspend the rules. So do I hear a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of suspending the rules say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So now call for a motion to adopt ordinance 040522B.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll now have a public hearing and consideration of resolution 040522, which is the Second Street of Huntsville LLC. I now call for a public hearing as advertised prior to consideration of resolution 040522 regarding the consideration and approval of certain economic development incentives to be granted by the city to Second Street of Huntsville LLC. The public benefits sought to be achieved by such incentives are the economic growth and anticipated increase in new employment, tax revenues, and other benefits which will directly benefit the city and serve a valid and sufficient public purpose. This public hearing is now open. Is there anyone here to speak for or against this resolution? All right, seeing no one, I now close the public hearing. I'll now call for consideration of resolution 040522, which provides for the authorization to grant public funds and things of value of approximately $300,000 to Second Street of Huntsville LLC to pay for a portion of the cost for acquiring, developing, constructing, equipping, and operating a retail development at 704 Bullweevil Circle, all subject to the terms of this agreement. I'll entertain a motion to adopt this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 040522. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll now introduce and call for consideration of resolution 040522A, providing for the establishment of an airport advisory committee to advise and make recommendations to the city as to airport operations. I'll entertain a motion to adopt resolution 040522A.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, I'll now call for a motion to authorize the mayor to execute an agreement on behalf of the City of Enterprise with Disabled American Veterans, DAV, Enterprise Coffee County No. 9 for the lease of the city-owned building located at 704 Crawford Avenue as per the terms of the lease agreement. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'll now call for a motion to approve an additional appropriation of $11,000 to be allocated for assistance to the Enterprise Public Library. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mayor, you have a report?
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I would like to read official letter that came from a citizen. It says to the police officials who went above and beyond to locate my granddaughter, Myra Hill, and for finding her father, Esther Hill, my son. Also for following up and checking on her. We appreciate all of you do, and this small village will even begin to express gratitude. Maya is our granddaughter, a very special young lady. We are praying for a full recovery. Once again, thank you for everything. May God bless each of you and keep you safe. Beverly and Jack Hill. This was written to the Enterprise Police Department on behalf of this family finding their granddaughter who is safely until they, of course, receives medical attention. Also, we have here from the Parks and Recreation, all baseball and softball season started yesterday, April 4th. LZ Disc Golf Course is officially open, and we are having a lot of people coming out to play the course. And we have people from Troy, Oakland, Fort Rucker, and the Florida Panhandle area to play the course. Tournaments hosted March the 13th and 14th, travel ball USA, baseball tournament, 25 teams. March 26th, disc golf tournament with huge success, 84 participants. All of the money that was raised from this tournament being donated to the Enterprise Rotary Club. Upcoming tournaments and events, April 16th, Travel Ball USA Baseball Tournament, April 30th, USFA Softball Tournament, May 14th, ARPA Track and Field State Meet. Special programs and events, all baseball and softball. The season started yesterday on April 4th. The LZ Disc Golf Course officially open, and we're having a lot of people come to play the course. Engineering. Permits approved. Singer, family detachment, 13, $2,715,000. Residential addition, 22, $527,000. New commercial, 18, $1,594. Commercial addition, 366,244. Nuisance properties, investigated properties, 24, verbal contact, 10, notification mail, 10, properties without progress, 14, properties mitigated, 7. Water department, there were 25 new construction water meter services installed in the month of March. Highway 167 tank rehab is complete and is back online. Well 6A is about 99% complete. Civic Center Farmers Market. For the month of April, we had 27 events, program scheduled for the Civic Center. 21 events, program scheduled for the Farmers Market facility. Farmers Market is open to the public on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday morning from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. I would also like to call up two ladies who will bring some decorative looks up our way, Kay Kirkwood and Mariah. Can you come up, please? Angela? Leanne.
Well, we just wanted to make an appearance with our hat today to tell you, to show you that if we can do it, y'all can do it. Of course, Main Street Enterprise and Downtown Business Association is going to have a Frank Forth Monument. It's going to be a great day. I'll let Ryan tell you a little bit more about that. But one of the highlights is the hat parade. And they just want to fill Main Street with a colorful array of bonnets and decorated caps and cowboy hats and whatever anything you put on your head, upside down, whatever you want to throw in there, just decorate it and come on down.
Thank you, Mayor. Sonia?
Thank everyone for coming out tonight. I almost hate I'm gonna be out of town this weekend to see Mayor and Jonathan and Turner line dancing with their Sunday best hats on. But I hope many of you can come out and support the Spring Festival. You all have a great night.
Mr. Eugene?
Back on March the 19th, on a Saturday, the Oscar Club held what they call the Day of Service. There was over 400 people participated, all kind of church groups, clubs, individuals, and they made a difference. Thank you.
Greg?
As Mayor Cooper said earlier, the disc golf course out of the park ribbon cutting was very well attended. Quite a large crowd out there for that. And then the very next day, I think it was 84 players in the first tournament. And so I have continued to hear and see a lot of great comments and feedback. I went out during the tournament, didn't play the tournament, but went out and walked almost the entire course around about, talking to various players, and there were people from Panama City, Tallahassee, Georgia, all around playing in that tournament on that Saturday, and lots of great feedback. A number of them said it was one of the best courses they had played. So Parks and Rec, Billy, all of you involved in that, great job, great feedback on that course. And then I was asked by the developer that has purchased the old Office Depot building to announce that Pop Shelf will be going in there. If you don't know what that is, go look at their website, and have a good night.
Thank you to everybody who's coming tonight, and thank you to all those that are online watching us do our city business. And I'd like to say again, we have the best city workers in the state. Tonight we were supposed to give some extra mile awards, and we had to postpone that because 3 were public works, 1 was the water department, and they're out working their jobs right now after the storm went through. So that shows dedication to those folks, and we'll make sure they get their extra mile award. The other thing is, you saw tonight, the privilege of the floor, 3 minutes. I've had folks say that, the council wasn't as easy to approach, but I'll tell you, you can come and talk for 3 minutes. It's out there, it's advertised. There's no reason for nobody in this city not to come up and give us an issue to any of the council people or the mayor, any of the city workers. We're here to help the city to make it better and to progress in everything we do. We're looking out for everything for the community. So please, come tell us. Don't put it out there on social media. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank everybody for coming. Thank everybody that addressed the council tonight. I'm sorry that some of you are probably leaving here disappointed. These land use situations are certainly, I think my colleagues would agree, are some of the most difficult things that we address. I spoke to multiple people ahead of this meeting on both sides of the issue. I do think it's a good time to underscore a few things that this council has been working on that some of you that maybe not as engaged until tonight need to be aware of. I know Barry and staff, Jonathan certainly, and Mayor, really everybody on the mayor's staff is working on our comprehensive plan actively now, engaged with a firm out of Birmingham KPS Group to renew our comprehensive plan to make sure that we do have a master plan to fit all this stuff through. And I think y'all brought some fair concerns, whether it's school zoning issues or blight, crime, property values. All of those are things that this council has been talking about. And certainly I don't think any of us can look into the future and say and can guarantee that this development is not going to be problematic. Well, I mean, the reality is we have problematic single family neighborhoods with blight and issues, and we have multifamily densely populated neighborhoods with issues, and we're actively working on remedying some of those things. Some of those things are easier said than done, especially when you have fragmented ownership and you have many people to serve notice to and to do all that. So those are things, I'm not gonna ask staff for an update on that tonight, but those are things that we expect, I think, I think we expect movement on and progress on. So, I will leave us with that. Have a good evening. I will be at a volleyball tournament in Foley, Alabama this weekend.
Mayor. She ready. You know she gearing up. They called me. See your mom to judge one of them. We'll be out of town. She said, "Oh, I can't look at it." I'm gonna say it ain't half like you think it.
How things going, you been? Caroline bugging you to death?
Not yet.
I saw that.
When she said she was gonna be crying, I said, "Or Eugene, because you'll have him working."
I'll make quantum adjustment.
She'll be good.
Stay busy.
Yeah, when we get back, I'll call you. Just tell them I asked. The key. I got that on the calendar.
You don't have this in the